On today's show, we are going to answer the question, are we in a recession? My name is Candace, and we'll begin right now. Before we can even hope to answer the question as to if we are in a recession or not, we first need to take a look at what exactly a recession is. In the simplest of definitions, a recession is a prolonged period of a decline in economic performance across a broad spectrum of the economy that can last from several months to years. When it comes to declaring a recession, we need to look at some key indicators, which include gross domestic product, or GDP, income, employment, industrial production, and wholesale as well as retail sales. We typically need to see 2 consecutive quarters of negative economic growth with the real GDP. Real GDP is a measure of total economic output with inflation being factored in. Recessions are a normal part of the overall economic business cycle. During times of economic growth, the economy is said to be in expansion. Of course, expansion cannot last forever, and we do eventually slow down after a peak and begin to move into a contraction. A contraction is initially not a recession, but it can very well be the prelude to a recession, or, in very, very rare cases, something much worse. A depression. Once the GDP moves into negative economic growth, the contraction has begun, and then only after 2 quarters does it become a recession. Now, a depression is like a very severe recession, but yet we do not have an agreed-on set of indicators to tell us if we are in a depression. The one agreed-on depression was the Great Depression, and during that depression, we had a negative 30% decline in the GDP, a negative 47% decline in industrial production, and unemployment was more than 20%. Holy banana bread. That went on for 10 years. Can you believe that? Within Canada, a recession is determined by the Bank of Canada or the Minister of Finance. Interestingly enough, we can even have a regional recession where a part of Canada can be experiencing a recession while the rest of the country is not. That was Alberta after the 2015 oil crash. Another interesting point is that Canadian recessions have occurred at the same time as US recessions, which makes sense as our GDPs are more closely entwined due to our very close trading relationship. A recession in the US is determined by the National Bureau of Economic Research, or NBER for short. With the illness, we experienced a very short recession in the beginning of the illness, with March and April of 2020 being absolutely dismal for the economy. It was one of the shortest recessions ever, and at the same time had numbers moving towards depression levels. Luckily, the economy bounced back pretty fast, and that recession was very short-lived. However, many think it may have just been postponed, and we may be about to experience it once again. Are we? Before we answer that, let's answer another question. What causes a recession? There are 5 common causes, and they include economic shocks, loss of consumer confidence, high interest rates, deflation, and asset bubbles. Interestingly, the illness would absolutely qualify as an economic shock. Consumer confidence is generally a slowdown in spending due to fear and uncertainty in the economy. For most of the illness, we saw the opposite of this as people spent all that stimulus money. However, that is slowing down, and some people are losing confidence. I would give this one a half point for the time being. High interest rates? Nope, not yet. We are starting to raise them, but still a long way off from them being high. Deflation? No, not really. Finally, we have asset bubbles. This one is a yes. We have inflated real estate prices, and a lot of stocks have been overvalued. So overall, we have 2.5 out of 5 in regard to things that cause recessions. Keep in mind, we do not need all of these for a recession. Here's the big thing. What does the real GDP data say? In Q3 2021, Canada's real GDP was $2.091 trillion. In Q4, it was $2.125 trillion. Oh, it increased by 1.63%. But maybe that is less than the increase from Q2 to Q3. Q2 was 2.063 trillion. So that interval was an increase of 1.35%. Well, isn't that interesting? We did fall slightly from Q1 to Q2 in the form of negative 0.9%. From those numbers, we really are not in a recession. In fact, the earliest we could be in a recession would be the middle of the year if our Q1 2022 numbers come in flat. Spoiler alert, most economists are not expecting us to slide economically in 2022. It will not be a smooth growth by any definition of the term. However, it is unlikely that it will be a recession. Okay, so no recession for now. However, one is still coming, as that is the normal cycle. There are still things in play that could trigger a recession. The real estate bubble, the supply chain woes, black swan events, to name a few. As investors, it never hurts to be prepared for a recession. There are recession-proof investments that you can add to your portfolio. Think blue chip investing. Think of companies that are still in demand in a recession. People still need power, food, housing, and healthcare. In fact, a smart investor can make a lot of money in a recession, but well, that's a story for another time. If you guys loved this video, be excited. There is way more to come. Until then, why not watch one of these videos? And before you jump into that content, just be sure to like and subscribe to support the channel. I'll see you in the next video.